uses its influence in the world for good or the alternative. In my family, we will be looking for a college that believes that the weight of a good education, like the value of a good book or the measure of a human soul, can never be truly quantified. Those are really powerful words, and I suspect that some of you already went through this process as you were choosing a high school setting and trying to figure out what to do. And you cannot give those values up to someone else like a rankings and ratings place, as this mom mentioned. You have to be able to do it yourself. The other kinds of stories that appear this time of year soon, continue to appear, talk about the parents in the process. So parents, do you know the nasty word that you're being called? Nobody knows this? I heard it. Helicopter parents. So there's a cartoon that appeared in syndicated papers all over the country. It showed two young women leaving high school at the end of their junior year, and one turned to the other and said, "This summer my parents are sending me to college application camp, admissions essay writing camp, and SAT score improvement camp. And I'm sending them to Camp Get a Grip." So I know that no one here has to go to Camp Get a Grip, I'm sure of it. And so I think we can fix this. I hate that terminology, helicopter parent. It's terrible. We parents play a very valuable role in this process. We know our children really well. And we can help them find the good matches. It's just that sometimes we do too good of a job, and we don't know when to back off, and that's where this helicoptering thing comes in. In fact, the Wall Street Journal got into this, and so they said, these parents are not just handing out goodies and doing the antibiotic wipes everywhere and doing play groups and then moving on to college guidance offices. They have moved on beyond that, and Fortune 500 companies are writing about how parents are negotiating the salary and benefit packages for their college graduate children in great degree, apparently. And then 2 years later, they wrote about how at MBA and graduate schools, the deans of admissions have stopped being shocked when it's the moms and dads that are calling for MBA applications for their children and calling to find out why they did not receive admission. So and I still think that just like those articles that are about one or two students, there's one or two parents who are giving all the rest of us a bad name, and we are going to shut this down and stop it. So instead of helicoptering, I want all of you to think from now on about being hummingbird parents. If you've ever seen hummingbirds, they are fascinating. And they do hover. And they do the hovering while they're doing the feeding of these little birds in the nest. Now, baby hummingbirds get fat in a hurry with all that good nectar and everything else. And they get so fat, and their little tiny nests that they build, because the eggs are the size of a Tic Tac. And so these birds, get big, and they push up against the nest, and they're not going to leave. They're just happy as can be with those little mouths open, and the hummingbirds come. And so these hummingbirds have to do something about it, these hummingbird parents. And so they say, it's time. The care and nurturing and feeding is done, and you have to be independent here. And they give them a shove out of that nest. And they let them go, and sometimes, they have some trouble, and they don't make out, and they might fall to the ground, but they are okay, they make it. And they don't let them come back to the nest, which is a really good topic for another night that we could talk about. And so you just need to figure out the balance of when it is important and appropriate to do the caring and the nurturing. And at what point do the students, your children, take over and take responsibility for this process? I can tell when it happens that the parents have had too much to say about the college application process. In my years being a dean of admissions and working, especially Saturday mornings, and waiting for families to come in for tours, and the family would come into the door, two parents and a child with them. I could pretty easily usually identify who the student was. It was the sleepy one that was being dragged through the door. And I would put my hand out and I'd say, "Hi, I'm Marty O'Connell. What's your name?" And this is what that student would do. They would look at their mom for the answer. Now, if nothing else, a student certainly should know their own name if they're ready to go off to college. So why does that happen? We've done such a good job helping them get to that point that they begin to be fearful that they can't they're going to make a mistake or do something wrong if they don't ask mom or dad, what am I supposed to say? What am I supposed to do next? When we have the Colleges That Change Lives programs across the country, there have been times when I have held the parents back from the college fair portion and sent the students in by themselves. So interesting to watch. You would think that these kids were never going to see their parents again by the look on their face. And then I would do a Q&A session with the parents, and the whole time the parents are looking out the door like, when are you going to let me go? And then and I would say to some of them, you don't have to go into that college fair room. They really should be putting their hand out and introducing themselves to those college representatives. It's the beginning of that college rep knowing who the person is and starting a conversation with them. You don't get to go to college again. You probably already did this once. It's their turn. And some parents have said, thank you for giving me permission not to go in that room because I felt like I had to do it. And so you need to figure out that balance. You do need the information. You do need to be helpful in the process. But if the student isn't learning independence, they're not going to be independent when they get on that college campus. And if there's one thing I could change right now, it would be the cell phone umbilical cord issue that we have going on. It's a wireless umbilical cord, but it's connected nonetheless. And first-year students are calling their parents every instant to say, I don't think I did very well on that chemistry quiz. Now, think back again, those of you that had that college experience. You probably couldn't even get to the phone, right? I know we had one at the end of a long residence hall, and you would get widely mocked if you were calling your mother or your father for something. And yet, here's what we've done. So some of this is good that we're connected, but there's another piece of it that isn't allowing the independence that's so important for them to be able to then make their way in the world. So balance is great, and I trust that you can find it if you keep that hummingbird analogy in your mind and try to do it. The main sadness that I have in doing this work, from stepping away from the college admissions process on a college campus and traveling around the country, is how often I hear students and families say, I hate this college admissions process. I'll be so happy when it's over. I think, really? You hate it? This should be fun. This should be an enjoyable time. And everybody feels like, we don't understand it. It's stressful. You've got to do so much reading. And I really do think there's a way to find joy in it. Absolutely, it will take time. There's no doubt about it. And students and families say, we are already so busy. How are we going to find the time? Did you notice how many activities our students are involved with? How are they going to have time to visit campuses and do all this? I do ask this one question then when faced with that question. I ask students how many of them have iPods. And I ask about time spent downloading music and Facebook accounts and things like that. And so I think that we do have time to do something this important, to make an identification with a college that might become a community, not for 4 years, but a connection for a lifetime, and an excellent background for lifelong learning. And I think it should take time. And it's something that you have to carve out. I'll give you the hint from the O'Connell household that I think worked really well. And my kids used to say to the students that are here, if you think you've got it tough, try having a mom who's an admissions dean and go through this process, because it's a lot worse. And what we did is I realized that all of these things are written on our calendar. Marching band, theater, track, cross country, lacrosse, all of these activities, community service, and all kinds of things, and jobs. Nowhere on our calendar was I seeing the college search process. Isn't that interesting? If it doesn't get on the calendar, it's not going to get done. I mean, it's how we live our lives. You put these things on because you can't forget about them, and you've got to make the time to do them and to be somewhere. So we agreed on 7 o'clock on Sunday evenings in the second half of the junior year to put down college admissions on our calendar at home. In the beginning, it was my joy to have them search through the pile of toppling brochures on the counter in the kitchen and go through them and recycle the ones